all for joining us on this call. Really appreciate your time. I know this is a very, very difficult time for most of us as we all try to navigate this situation that I don't think anyone has ever been planning for or ever planned for. This is something that we hope to help. I mean, given the relationships that we have with our corporate clients and nonprofits, and realizing how much our members really care about making an impact, we thought it would be a good idea to start facilitating these webinars on a weekly basis so that we could feature nonprofits that are really at the front lines and making sure that things don't fall apart while we manage this crisis. And there are a lot of people in vulnerable communities that will absolutely be affected by this, and nonprofits are playing such an important role to make in making sure that those communities are not neglected in a time of most dire need. This is really in line with what we've all been about at CariClub since I founded the company. And we're excited to introduce today our panelists from New York Cares and the Food Bank for New York City. So here we are.
Thanks so much for having us.
Absolutely. So Cynthia Burgess, would you like to take a second to just introduce yourself to everyone on the call?
Hi, I'm Cynthia Chauvin-Dalton. I'm Director of Development at New York Cares. New York Cares has about 52,000 volunteers each year, serving at over 400,000 New Yorkers. We work with about 1,000 nonprofit community partners, including the Food Bank of New York City.
And I am Bridget Palsick. I'm the Senior Manager of Partnerships and Campaigns at Food Bank for New York City. During regular times, Food Bank serves 1.5 million New Yorkers. I think this year we'll see a considerable increase, but we provide over 58 million meals to New Yorkers throughout the 5 boroughs via a network of over 1,000 soup kitchens and food pantries. So thank you for having us here, and thanks for joining to learn more.
Yeah. So like one of the things that we did that sparked this webinar was that we polled many of our nonprofits, and we found out that roughly like 80% of them are really stretched right now because of the current condition, the demand for their services, and nonprofits are already bandwidth constraints in like normal times. I imagine it must be incredibly challenging for you to do the work that you're doing right now. And given our relationships, as I mentioned, with these different companies where we have employees, many of them currently working remotely, that have the means to, in some cases, volunteer on a remote basis, I thought it would be good to connect everyone together and see what kind of good we could do collectively in whatever way we can. And so COVID-19 has definitely been a difficult time. Actually, my sister, she's about to graduate medical school, so she's going to be on the front lines of a lot of this. She's going to be working in New York City at Mount Sinai Hospital, and so she will be right in all of this. So we all have a role to play in different ways, and I'm hoping that the folks on the call could find ways to help these amazing organizations that are doing so much to keep things together while we get through this. So without further ado, I would like to turn things back to New York Cares. Cynthia, go ahead.
Hi, thank you for having me today and allowing me to explain to your members what we're doing at New York Cares. New York Cares has been activated by New York City's Office of Emergency Management. We have helped in the past after Hurricane Sandy, and we also provided some support for sending supplies to Hurricane Maria. And by activating us, we're working with the New York City Volunteer Task Force. We've been working with other nonprofits, the Food Bank of New York City, to set up some food distributions. Right now, we still have our hunger program, some meal delivery services, and some meal preparation services running. We've had to do a lot of adjustments to our guidelines to ensure that we can practice, the social distancing, and keep people separated according to the guidelines. The safety of our volunteers and of the people that we serve has been first and foremost in our mind, and we're working with New York City on all guidelines. We are also looking at virtual volunteer opportunities, trying to get those ramped up as soon as possible. We're testing this weekend, we're going to be testing some phone banking to try to see if we can use a phone banking system to have volunteers checking on people who are isolated, seniors, and maybe families, to check on them and see what services they may need. And about 50% of our education, of our programming in a normal time is education, and we're trying to see if we can resume that virtually. We have a lot of programming in the public schools, and obviously that's all been suspended because the schools are closed, but we're trying to see if we can somehow run some of the after-school programs virtually. So that's what we're working on now.
So it looks like it's my turn. So as I mentioned, Food Bank works with soup kitchens and food pantries across the city. Soup kitchens serve prepared meals. Food pantries give folks staple items that they can bring home with them to cook in their own households. And we've had to adjust our services significantly because we generally encourage community meals and having people sit together, have that sense of community, as well as supporting client choice style pantries where folks can come in and actually pick out the items that will best serve their families, but looking to follow guidelines from the city, from the CDC. We are doing all of our services from the door, which means all meals are pre-packed and handed out ready to go at the door, and pantry bags are actually pre-packed as well and handed out. So really having to shift our general operations to meet the needs of the times. Additionally, we're seeing increased needs. So a lot of hourly employees are obviously not being paid. And so some clients are experiencing the emergency feeding program for the first time. So we're trying to approach all of them with compassion and dignity to make sure that they're getting all of the services that they need while dealing with all of the stress of this situation and some of the shame that sometimes comes along with accepting our services. Additionally, we generally rely on about 800 volunteers a week to help with all of our operations. So that's at our warehouse, sorting out food, as well as at our community kitchen, preparing meals, packing meals, those sorts of things. And right now we're down to less than 100 volunteers a week. So our staff is really having to pick up that slack and kind of do double duty. So we have folks from our headquarters office who usually work in IT or finance, development, fundraising, actually on the docks, in the warehouse, building pallets so that they can go out on the trucks. And then we're spending our evenings and weekends doing our regular day job. So and definitely a shift in how we're operating for our clients, for our volunteers, for our staff. And a lot of this new developments and the ways we're distributing food have some increased costs that we really weren't anticipating. So all of the to-go containers and bags that we're packing things in were not things that we had previously budgeted for. Usually people are eating on reusable plates in our community kitchen. They're taking their own bags to bring their groceries home. So those are new costs. We've also seen fewer we've also seen some soup kitchens and food pantries close because they don't have any volunteers. So we do have neighborhoods and pockets in the city where there are no emergency feeding programs. So we're developing distribution models working with New York Cares, for example, to get volunteers out for what we're calling pop-up distributions at different NYCHA sites, where we're pre-packing bags on site, having people line up down the block with social distancing in mind, and handing out bags at the door of the NYCHA facility. But that, again, is a new service that has increased cost for delivery to new sites, staff time to be on site and assist with those distributions. So there's a lot of changes in that regard to the work that we're doing. Virtually, it's hard. We really need bodies here to help us. So anyone that is willing, able, healthy, we would welcome you to come out. But virtually, the best way to get involved is actually to make a donation and to help us cover those increased costs that we're seeing across the network.
Hey, just jumping in here, Roden, I think you're on mute. So we see you talking, but we don't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Got it. So, sorry about that. I imagine that sharing on social media is also helpful, valuable in terms of like getting more awareness about your organization and hopefully driving more donations. Can you talk about the general experience of what a volunteer might be doing and sort of like what the commitment might look like, and anything about the safety precautions you're taking around COVID? That would be, I think, helpful for our audience.
Okay. Well, we've set up a couple of pages to describe what we've done. I mean, one of the first things to go was our programming at senior centers because they're one of the most vulnerable populations. But as I said, we're trying to put together some virtual volunteering, some phone banking to reach out to those people. So if you go to our site, that we actually have two links on New York Cares webpage, one to express interest in volunteering and another to donate. We do have increased cost as well. We haven't even been able to really calculate them, but we do have the increased costs technology-wise for some of this virtual volunteering that we're trying to set up. So you can express interest. We've had about 5,000 to 6,000 people express interest, plus our regular volunteer base. You can also go to our website and search for projects. Most of the in-person projects at this point are food distribution, either preparing meal kits or distributing meal kits, again, at the door, like Bridget said, preparing packets, bags from food pantries to be distributed. And we are emphasizing, that you must be able to pack the meals or distribute them with the proper social distancing. So those are all changes we've made. Making sure our community partners have basics like gloves and hand sanitizer and masks. So those are all changes we've made. When you do express interest in becoming a New York Cares volunteer, we do have an orientation. And one of the changes we've made is that it's completely digital now. We used to have in-person orientations and only a few things digitally. Now the orientation process is all digital, so you can go through the orientation, and that will also cover, the revised safety procedures as well. You can also click on the link to donate to help cover these costs. And hopefully, if you express interest, we'll be sending out emails in a few more days about virtual volunteering. If, for some reason you don't want to volunteer in person, if you're concerned about catching the virus, or if you're in a high-risk group, we are developing the volunteer opportunities to volunteer virtually.
Bridget, anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I would say similarly, we've got gloves, we've got hand sanitizer. Part of the reason that clients aren't coming into the building was in an effort to protect volunteers and staff as well as clients. And given that our volunteer count is just so low, there's a lot of social distancing. For projects where we used to have 50 people, we now have about 2. So not as big a concern there to be interacting with people. So that's a big difference for us for sure.
Is there anything else that you'd like to tell our audience? And by the way, you are all, everyone on the call, you're welcome to chime in if you have questions that you would like to present to the food bank or New York Cares. Feel free to raise your hand and I will plug you in.
You know, I also please feel free to spread the word. I know a lot of people feel isolated and they feel helpless and want to do something. And so there are ways to do something, whether that's through volunteering or donation. I know we've been contacted by people who suddenly have more time on their hands for an unfortunate reason that, you know, their business is closed and they're not working. But we also, even if you are working, I mean, we have volunteer opportunities at all times and on the weekends, as I'm sure the food bank does as well.
Yeah, I would say for me, one of the things that Jody asked us to touch on was some advice we have for folks. And it can be really hard during stressful times to be positive and find the good. For me, I'm very lucky that my job gives me that opportunity every day. I get to wake up and know that I'm helping people, and that has made a world of difference for me. So instead of focusing on my own personal stress, I'm focusing on how to lighten other people's stress. And just having that little bit more of a purpose, something else to look at has been really helpful. And so I encourage everyone to get involved in some way, whether that is virtual volunteering through New York Cares or coming out in person to us. But giving back is the best way to feel better in these hard situations, I think.
Definitely. Does anyone on the call have any questions?
I see a couple questions coming in on the chat. Roden, if you want to take a look at those and present them to the panelists.
Let's see.
Okay, I can see some of the chat questions, and it looks like a question about the virtual volunteering. And is there a way to be notified when these opportunities are available? And if we wanted to offer to our company, would everyone need to do the virtual orientation? Okay. If you go to our webpage, there is a link just to basically asking for your name and your email. And we have compiled that list, and we will be sending emails to that list to notify people of the opportunities. So I encourage you to do that. And yes, at this point, in order to volunteer, you would have to sign up with New York Cares and create an account and go through the digital orientation, but we've made it as quick and as seamless as possible. We used this digital orientation system for one of our days of service last year, and it worked quite well. So I assure you it won't take long. At this point, yeah, it's best if everybody just expresses interest individually, and we will reach out to some of our corporate partners to let them know of these opportunities.
And I think I saw a question about pop-ups in the chat as well. So we're actually doing 3 pop-ups a day for the next 5 days, and we'll have more announced after that. The pop-ups are taking place across the city. So we have at least 1 pop-up in every single borough. And you can sign up on our website directly for all of our volunteer opportunities by visiting foodbanknyc/volunteer. And that'll take you to our full calendar of events where you can sign up. We don't have a full orientation process, but we do ask you to do a quick health certification just to say you haven't traveled or been exposed to any vulnerable situations that could expose you to the virus and therefore our clients. So it's pretty easy to go through, pick out an opportunity that meets your schedule, your time, and to go from there.
Yes, another thing that we're trying to emphasize is, trying to volunteer. If you're going to a volunteer location, one in your borough as close as possible to minimize time on the subway or on public transportation, even if there's something within walking distance. So we're working with food banks, so we do have those pop-ups, and we have other volunteer opportunities in various boroughs. We cover all 5 boroughs.
Thank you, guys. And one of the things to add to that is for all of our attendees, Renee, when she sent out a calendar invite to all of you, we also included the volunteer links in that calendar invite.
Yep. And we will be following up with a presentation that we will we'll include some of that some more information. Question that came in, is either one of you working directly with any hospitals?
Yeah, so this is Food Bank. We do have some pop-ups planned for hospitals. So that would be targeting hospital staff, families who might be visiting patients in the hospital. So we are looking to fill that need as well.
At the moment, I believe all our programs at hospitals have been suspended. We did have some health and wellness programming at some hospitals. So those programs were suspended just because that involved people gathering. And I don't believe at this point we have anything specifically planned at hospitals. Most of them are at like the food bank ones are at public housing distribution sites, and also some of the other community partners that are food pantries or soup kitchens.
All right.
One question that came into the chat as well is, how are the volunteers covered under the stay-at-home order? Could you guys speak to that a little bit?
Okay. Well, we have been working with the Office of Emergency Management and the New York City Volunteer Task Force, and that is something that we work to clarify. We do actually have, it's just a letter or a card that you can print to cover, but because these are essential services, food, nonprofits that work especially in food delivery are considered an essential service, and so you're covered. You would be treated similarly to a paid essential service worker.
Yeah, volunteers are essential for our operations, and we're essential during crises. So volunteers are essential during crises for our work.
Yes. There is New York City has a website called NYC Help Now, and there's also an office called NYC Service, and you can look them up, and they have the information and the clarifications on volunteering on their sites.
Got it. Can you speak more generally about the climate right now around New York City? What are some other areas that are like severely impacted? What are some other sort of causes that are probably in desperate need of help? That's kind of like related to what you do.
I think long-term, there will be a lot of need around poverty alleviation. So things helping people who may lose so many wages and not be able to make up their rent or things like that. We know that foreclosures and evictions have been stopped for now, but it's unclear in the future what debt repayment will look like for all of these people who are out of work. So I think in the future, there will be a lot of much needed assistance around employment, welfare services such as SNAP, and applying for SNAP now even is a key need. So I think right now the focus is on very much the essential, getting food out to people, healthcare but long-term, the impact could go much deeper and much broader.
I think, and one of the things that we hear from emergency management is also the concern about mental health, that it's just as important as the physical health. And that's why I think we're trying to get some of this phone banking up so that we can check on people and try to decrease the isolation. And I mean, we've talked, I think this is further, but even trying to resume some of our health and wellness programs via a virtual method. You know, we've had yoga in senior centers and physical activities, you know, just playing after school games with kids, you know, basketball games and such. We have those kinds of programs with volunteers, and we're trying to figure out how to do those virtually to promote mental health as well.
Got it. Do you have any parting comments for our guests today?
Just thank you all for joining us today and for your concern for your fellow New Yorkers. You know, I think there's a way that everybody can help, and, you know, working together, we will get through this, and hopefully we will come out stronger you know, after it.
Yeah, I would agree. I just want to say thank you so much for anyone who's feeling well and healthy and is able to come out and volunteer. We would welcome you. But I think long-term, speaking to Cynthia's point about mental health, it's just important to be kind and gentle with yourself, but also with your neighbors, with the people that you're meeting.
Definitely. Thank you so much for your time. And we have your contact information on the screen right now. So CariClub members, feel free to reach out and help out in whatever way you can. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you all have a wonderful afternoon. And this concludes the conference call.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.